In this video, we will be looking at how to factor simple trinomials. But before we do that, I want to do a warm-up where we do the opposite of factoring, which is expanding and simplify. So I have two brackets here with a binomial in each, which means we have to do the FOIL version of the distributive property. So that means we're going to take our first term and multiply it into the second bracket. So x times x is x squared, and x times -3 is -3x. And then I'll take the positive 8 and multiply it in. So 8 times x is 8x, and 8 times -3 is -24. When I collect my middle terms, we have -3 plus 8, which is positive 5x, and then minus 24. And now let's do one more because we're going to take some observations at the end. So I'm going to multiply the x in, and we have x squared, and then x times 4, and then bring the 7 in. So 7 times x, and 7 times 4 is 28. When I collect my middle two terms here, 4 plus 7 is 11, so 11x's. Okay, so now I want to take some observations. Let's look at the coefficient of x. So the coefficient of x in the first scenario is positive 5 and positive 11 in the other. And let's also look at the constant, which is the plus 24 and the plus 28. And I want to connect it to the two numbers originally in the brackets, which are positive 8 in the first one and -3. So let's look at those two numbers. If I add up 8 and -3, I get the positive 5. Let's look at the other one. I had positive 7 and positive 4. When I add them up, I get 11. So if I add up the numbers in the brackets, we get the coefficient of x. So when the coefficient of x is the sum of the numbers, so sum meaning additions. And finally, if we look at the numbers and the constant at the end, if I multiply 8 and -3, I get the -24. And if I multiply 7 and 4, I get 28. So the constant is the product. So in this scenario, we expanded, but now for simple trinomials, we're going to factor to get to the bracket. So first of all, a simple trinomial always has this form. You're going to start with x squared, and the coefficient will always be 1, and then you're going to have an x term and a constant. Now, we're trying to go backwards here, so we're going to try to get to the brackets, and each bracket starts with an x, and then I like to call the numbers inside the magic numbers. And your magic numbers have to multiply to the constant, and they have to add up to the coefficient of x or b. Okay, so multiply is product, add is sum, so I like to use p and s for that. But you can use something else, which I'll show you in a second. So if we're factoring x squared plus 11x plus 24, the product has to be the constant, which is 24, and the sum has to be the coefficient of x, which is 11. If you don't like p and s, you can also write down multiplication is 24, addition is 11, if that works better. All right, so now you have to think of two numbers that when you add them, you get 11, and when you multiply them, you get the 24. So I have the multiplication table here for you to look at if you'd like, if it helps you. You could also use your calculator, or if you're good with your multiplication table, then this should be quite quick. So what you're trying to do is take the 24 and you can divide it by different numbers and see if you get the correct combination. So for example, if you're going up to your calculator, you might do 24 divided by 2. So when I do that, I get 12. So looking at 2 and 12, if I add them up, I get 14, so that doesn't work. Then I can try 24 divided by 3, and I get 8. 3 and 8 do add up to 11, so those actually end up being our magic numbers, +3 and +8. If you were just good with your multiplication table and you thought of different combinations to get 24, then it might be a little quicker. If you're using your times table that I have here, I would look at different ways to get 24. So I see 24 here, I see 24 here. And then I'll see which combination works. So 4 with 6, well, that adds up to 10. 3 and 8, that's the magic fit. So, you can use whatever method you would like. But once you find your magic numbers, we're just going to go to our brackets. Each bracket will start with the x, which I've already written for us. And then both were positive, so just x positive 3, x positive 8, and there it is. So let's try another one. So we have x squared plus 8x plus 15. So I want to multiply to the constant, so I want my product to be the 15 and the sum to be the middle number. So you might start thinking of combinations that give you 15. You might think of 5 times 3 right away, and if you do, that would be correct, because 5 plus 3 is also 8. But like I said, you could have taken 15, divided it by 2. You'd get a decimal. That doesn't work. 15 divided by 3, you'd get 5. Perfect. And you keep doing that until it works. Or you can look at your multiplication table. There's really only one way on here to get the 15, which is 5 times 3. And to factor, or to finish this off, x plus 5, x plus 3. Okay. Now just a few notes about the signs of your magic numbers. Right now I made everything positive, but just to keep in mind, when your product is positive, that means both of your numbers will be positive because 2 positives multiply to positive, or they're both going to be negative because 2 negatives make a positive. When your product is negative, then you're going to have one of each. Okay, so I want us to keep that in mind now that I'm going to start adding positives and negatives to the expression. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 5. So the product is the constant, the sum is the coefficient of x. So I see the product is positive, which means they're either both going to be positive or both negative. The fact that my numbers have to add up to a negative number, they both have to be negative. There's no other way. So to get 5, it would have to be 5 times 1. That's the only combination, but they both have to be negative. And then just to double check, if I add negative 1 and negative 5, I do get negative 6, so this is perfect. So for my factored form, it's just going to be x subtract 1 and x subtract 5. Okay, let's try another one. X squared minus 5x plus 6. The product is 6, the sum is negative 5. These are quite quick to do once you have your magic numbers. The hardest part is finding the numbers that work. So again, here, the product is positive. So they're both positive or both negative, but because the sum is negative, they must both be negative. Okay, so to get 6, it's either going to be negative 1 and negative 6, but that adds up to negative 7, so that's no good. And to get 6, we can also do negative 2 and negative 3, and that does add up to the negative 5. So x subtract 2, x subtract 3. And the order that you put your numbers into your brackets, it doesn't matter. If you had written x minus 3 and x minus 2, perfectly fine. All right. X squared plus 6x minus 16. So the product is the constant, which is negative 16, and the sum is positive 6. So right away, because my product is negative, I know I'm going to have one positive and one negative number. So when I'm dividing 16, I'm going to ignore the negative for now, although you can write it in if you'd like. So if I divide by 2, I get 8. So 2 and 8, well, they add up to 10, but if I make one of them negative, as we have previously determined, I would get 6. So negative 2 and positive 8 adds up to 6, so that's perfect. So x minus 2 and x plus 8. All right, x squared plus 7x minus 30. So our product's going to be negative 30, and our sum is going to be positive 7. So again, because the product is negative, you're going to have one of each, one positive and one negative number. Now, how about you pause the video here and try to find those magic numbers on your own, then come back to check your work. Okay, so to get 30, maybe you tried dividing by 2 and you got 15. If I make the 2 negative, nothing good happens. They add up to 13. If you try dividing 30 by 3, you would get 10. And if I use negative 3 and positive 10, they add up to 7. So that's perfect. So we're going to have x subtract 3 and x plus 10. Next, x squared plus 9x plus 14. Your product should be the 14 and your sum should be the 9. So again, why don't you pause your video, try to find the magic numbers, then come back. So to get 14, there's really only two options, 1 times 14, which doesn't work, or 2 times 7, which does add up to 9 as well. So that's the perfect combination. So x plus 7, x plus 2. And if you wrote it the other way around and you had x plus 2 and then x plus 7 after, perfectly fine. All right. For our next one, our product should be 18 and our sum should be negative 9. So again, the product is positive, so they're both positive or both negative, but the sum is negative, so they have to be both negative. Okay, so pause the video, try to find those magic numbers because that is the hardest part, and then come back to check your work. So if you tried dividing 18 by 2, you would get 9. Negative 2 and negative 9 add up to negative 11, so that's no good. If you try dividing 18 by 3, you'd get 6. Negative 3 and negative 6 is perfect because they add up to negative 9. So x minus 3 and x minus 6. All right, 2 more, and this time I kind of took the training wheels off. I took the setup brackets away. So here, x squared minus 8x minus 20, the product is negative 20, and the sum is negative 8. So because the product is negative right away, I know it's going to be a positive and a negative. So here, maybe you try dividing by 2, and you get 10. In this case, if you were to make the 2 negative, you'd get positive 8, and we want negative 8. So if we make the 10 negative and the 2 positive, that would be perfect. So we write our equal sign for good communication, and then you're going to start each bracket with x and put one of your magic numbers. So x subtract 10, and then x plus 2. And that's it. Okay, I want you to try the last one on your own. I want you to set up your product and sum, set up your brackets, and then come back to check your work. So our product should be negative 28 and our sum should be positive 3. We are going to have one of each. So you might divide by 2 and you get 14. 14 with negative 2 just gives you 12, so that's not good. Maybe you divide by 3 and you're going to get a decimal, so that's no good. If you divide by 4, you get 7. So if I make the 4 negative and the 7 positive, they do add up to that positive 3, so that's perfect. So your final answer here should be x subtract 4 and x plus 7. And that's it for the simple trinomial. So you're going to have 3 terms, an x squared, an x, and a constant. You're always going to multiply to the number at the end, which is the constant, and add up to the middle. Be careful with your signs, and make sure your magic numbers do fulfill both the multiplication and the addition. And that's it.